And welcome back, everybody, to Gabbin with Oof, episode 23, live from the Oof Man Entertainment Studios here in the Dirty Jers. Thank you so much for everybody who's checked out the previous videos. I do really appreciate it, especially all those who checked out the latest videos of me and our boy Gino. Shout out to Papa Gino out there, ranting on the critics, ranting on the Michael movie. As I said, I've had the honor of seeing that movie 3 times. I'm going to try for a fourth. Going to squeeze one in there because he's killing it in the theater. So check those videos out. And thank you again for tuning in to this one. And for today's episode, episode 23, I am not alone again. I would like to introduce you guys to the Oof Man Clubhouse, another member of the Oof Man Entertainment Friends Gang. I met him through Gino. Again, more shout outs to Papa Gino. He is the man. Check out his channel, Papa Gino, on YouTube. So I'd like to give it out a shout out to my boy C-Rod. How you doing, Chris, man? Welcome to Oof Man Entertainment.
Thank you, brother. I'm excited to be here. I didn't know what to wear. I know we're talking wrestling today. I figured what better than wear my Yankee stuff to be on a Mets podcast. But yes, it's very. I'm very honored to be on Gabbin with Oof. I know that you have recently been on one of my latest episodes of the You Good podcast where we talked about MCU rankings. We have talked a ton on Gino's Major Push Wrestling, but here we are today to have our one-on-one conversation and just gab about Owen Hart.
Exactly. Yes. So also we may be joined by my other brother from a different mother, Dave Scheffler. We'll see. And anybody else from the family. Again, shout out to Aaron and NoDQ.com. The reason why, like I said last time in the video for the predictions for Double or Nothing AEW's pay-per-view this weekend, and everybody said if it wasn't for Aaron Rift and NoDQ, all of us wouldn't have met. So again, shout out to the boss Aaron Rift over there at NoDQ. Check out the channel, NoDQ.com, here on YouTube. And again, I was on last night doing predictions for Double or Nothing and Saturday Night's Main Event. And yeah, I was on Chris's show a couple days ago. We had a lot of fun talking MCU. Chris is going to plug it when we're done here. So yeah, Chris said it best. Well, he said what we're here for. We're here for episode 23 of Gabbin with Oof. We are talking about not a sensitive topic, but like Chris said, we're all the nucleus of our friendship of all of us, Gino, Matthew, Dave, and especially Aaron and Chris and all of us. We're wrestling fanatics, and we are now commemorating the 27th anniversary of the passing of the late, great Owen Hart. And so Chris and I and a bunch of us, we all were teenagers in that awesome time of the Attitude Era, where unfortunately we lost Owen Hart. And what's creepy about this, again, as diehard wrestling fans, we didn't necessarily witness it, but we kind of did. So I'm going to break it down as we get into it. So long story short, for those that who happen to not know, Owen Hart is a member of the famous Hart family of Calgary, Alberta, Canada. He is Bret's brother. He was the youngest of the children. The Stu and Helen Hart had 8 boys and 4 girls. And like they said in Wrestling with Shadows, Bret said all 8 boys got into wrestling and all 4 girls married wrestlers. So he comes from the historic Hart family. Owen joined the WWF in the late 80s. And he was floundering a little bit in his career. They didn't tie him with Bret because Bret was busy doing the tag team thing with Jim the Anvil Neidhart, his brother-in-law, Bret and Owen's brother-in-law. And so Bret was with Jim, and Owen was kind of floundering. He did do the Blue Blazer for a couple years, but then he went back to regular Owen Hart. When Bret and Jim split up, they went with Owen and Jim, called the New Foundation, and it didn't hit. They just were mixing. From stories I've read from Bret's book and other interviews, Bret said Owen was just tired. He became the new Bret, meaning that he unfortunately had to take care of Jim the Anvil Neidhart. And if you read Natalia's book, another thing, one of my episodes, I reviewed her book. Bret was Jim's babysitter. Jim was doing very naughty things. Let's just leave it at that, if you know what I mean. And then Owen then became the new babysitter. Yeah. So C-Rod, I recommend Bret's book. I recommend Natalia's book. Cheap plug. They're both on Audible. So cheap plug there. If you like audiobooks, Bret's book is on there. 20 hours of Bret reading his own book. It's pretty cool. I bought it. Of course I did, because come on. I bought it. I listened to it on the way to work, and it's 20 hours of Bret reading his own book. People think it's AI. No, it is Bret himself. And of course, being the heart market that I ate. Yeah.
I was gonna say, how many hours of Bret talking about Bill Goldberg are on it?
Well, in his later chapters of his book, he does mention the kick. So it's only like a chapter long. So maybe like
Shocking.
35 minutes or so. This was before Brit or Brett, so you can look at that. And again, she plugged Natalia's book is really, really good. I mean, she daughter of Jim the Anvil Neidhart. She mentions Jim's adventures as well. So Owen was teamed with him, and he got tired of babysitting Jim, and so he went solo. They teamed him up with Coco Beware, the Birdman. That's right, high energy. If you remember their get up, their pants, they look like an early edition of MC Hammer, and Owen was floundering there. Then finally, 1993 came around where the tide turned for Owen. If you remember, Bret Hart was feuding with Jerry the King Lawler, and they were going to have that big family feud match at Survivor Series 93. Jerry Lawler himself got into some personal trouble, so then it was Shawn Michaels and his Knights, question mark, against the Hart family. Bret, Owen, Bruce, and Keith Hart, the four brothers teaming together in the elimination match. Fast forward through the match, Owen Hart is the only Hart brother eliminated. He gets hit. He hits Bret bouncing off the ropes. He gets eliminated. And at the end, the brothers are celebrating, and Owen comes out all PO'd and angry. And it, again, going back to Bret's book, this is what Owen was looking forward to. Bret pushed Owen to be this heel character. It was supposed to originally be Bruce Hart, of all people, but Bret went to bat for his brother. He's like, he told basically Vince in a nutshell, like, look, Owen's not doing anything. If you want to turn a Hart family member heel, let it be Owen. And Vince was a little skeptical, but he said, okay, he trusted in Bret. And Bret says in his book that Owen was so happy to get this chance. And they started, Chris, I don't know if you have older brothers or younger brothers. I don't know how your family is.
I am an only child.
Oh, okay. You're only child. All right. I have an older sister. So we can't experience it for anybody out there who has older or younger brothers and you're male. It was the typical little brother versus big brother. Little brother was always in the shadow of the big brother, and that was Owen being in the shadow of the hitman. They made peace in Christmas time. They went to the Royal Rumble in 94 to go for the tag titles, but that's the infamous Owen kicking Bret's leg out of his leg, and the heel turn was on. They went to WrestleMania, in my opinion, and then I don't know if Chris wants to add his opinion to this too. Bret versus Owen, WrestleMania 10, greatest opening match in the history of WrestleManias. Just my opinion. I don't know where C-Rod stands with that, but that's where I stand with it. And from 94 to about 96, Bret and Owen would feud here and there. And then finally, it was Bret's turn to turn heel. He united the British Bulldog and Owen Hart. They became the New Hart Foundation. Jim the Anvil Neidhart came later. So did Brian Pillman. And 97, I think, was a great creative year in wrestling. Again, trying not to be biased here, C-Rod, but the Hart Foundation were the hottest heel faction in the company. They were kicking butts and taking names and all that. Then something happened in Montreal, I think is how you pronounce it. Montreal, Canada in 97 in November. Something happened. Well, we all know what happened there. And so Owen stayed in the company. He was the Black Heart. He feuded with Shawn Michaels for a cup of tea. He got a WWF title match, but we all knew he was going to win it. He teamed up with Jeff Jarrett. They won the tag titles a little bit there, and I'll stop there. So that was just a quick nutshell, real recap, the bullet point version of Owen's career in the WWF. So, Chris, what do you have any specific memories, anything I mentioned or something I haven't mentioned of Owen, of your time being a fandom there during that time of wrestling?
So it's interesting, right? And we talked about this a little bit before we went on. Just our age difference. It's not much, but when Owen Hart was wrestling, I was 8, 9, 10 years old. Much different than kind of where you were. And I probably pinpoint what I remember about wrestling, probably somewhere around 94, 95. Like I said, it would have been that 8, 9, 10-year-old range. And I really started getting into wrestling, obviously, around 96 when the Monday Night Wars and WCW started taking off. But for me, it's really interesting because I remember the tragedy of Owen Hart more than I remember his
understandable
wrestling.
I get it. You were older. Yeah, I get it.
And it's one of those things where it's such a mystical tragedy, a mythological tragedy, I guess we'll kind of call it, because we're talking what are we talking, 1999, right?
99, yeah, when it happened.
99. There wasn't a lot of cell phones, there wasn't a lot of social media. there
Nope.
is such little footage of the incident that WWE, WWF at the time was able to bottle it all up, right? And
Yeah.
I know we'll talk about the event a little bit more, but it was, you saw it there live. Even if you were watching the pay-per-view, they had a package running on. You didn't see the incident. It's this big mystery what actually happened. And we didn't get a documentary until years
Right.
later. Dark Side of the Ring, when they put
Hmm.
that out. And so here you are. What happened? What really happened? It's Monday Night Wars. WWE was known to go to crazy extents. Was this an angle? Was this kayfabe? Nobody
Yeah.
really knew, especially being a 10-year-old kid, right? You don't really know better or not. But you know, you mentioned a few things. For me, I have heard great stories about how big of a heart mark you are, which is why I wanted to
it's
come on,
it's
because
out there. It's out there on the internet. If you search for it, you'll find it.
it's not that I don't like Bret Hart, Owen Hart's the Hart Foundation. It's just they weren't my time. By the
That's
time
fine.
I was into wrestling, Bret Hart was over in WCW. We already know that that's such a terrible thing. I did watch Stone Cold and Bret Hart. You know, obviously the infamous matches that they had. Um, for me, I went back and I watched the Bret Hart Owen Hart WrestleMania 10 match. Great
Nice.
match. Didn't watch it
Mm.
live. Watched it afterwards when I was, you know, when I got Peacock and everything was on Peacock. I was like, let me watch some of the best older stuff. And he was an in-ring technician, just like Bret Hart. They were both two of the best technical wrestlers out there. I remember Nation of Domination, Owen Hart. I
Mm.
remember the terrible blue blazer gimmick of Owen Hart. And outside of him tag teaming with British Bulldog or Jim Neidhart, that's really my memories of his wrestling moments. And
Okay.
unfortunately, my greatest memories are just simply of the tragedy and the
Mm.
mythos of Owen Hart.
Yeah, and in your cases, it makes complete sense. Like we were saying, in '99, you were really young versus me, and I completely get it. Yeah, the cool part is, like you said, master technician. We can gab for hours about all his matches have been great. I just skipped through some, so real fast that are just popping in my head again. I haven't done a ranking list. I don't think I ever will of the greatest Brett matches ever or Owen matches, but you said a WrestleMania 10. Again, my personal opinion, the greatest opening match in WrestleMania
It was great.
history. I'll
Yeah.
fight you on it. I don't know if this will be Iron Man 3 fighting, but whatever. You got to watch his video, folks. Anyway, we're insider talk. But
Insider
again, following that,
insider
yeah,
information.
again, that following year, again, I try to put my markism, if that's a word, of the Hearts to the side, but him and Owen at SummerSlam at the SummerSlam '94, the steel cage match. I think the greatest steel cage match, not Hell in a Cell, greatest steel cage match of all time.
Mm.
Absolutely no blood, no ripping of the turnbuckles or destroying. It was a steel cage match, the blue cage back in the day. Back in my day, we had a blue cage, those big square cages there, and great. They had to tell a story again, going back to Brett's book when he and Owen wanted blood, but Vince, this was early WWF '94. They were more family friendly than they are today. Brett, Brett knew, like, all right, as much as he wanted the juice, the color, he knew they couldn't, and he knew Vince would get in monster. Well, the company would get in monster trouble. So Brett's in his book, like him and Owen literally sat there staring at each other, going, "How are we going to do this?" Because going
Mm.
back to their Stampede dates in Calgary, they would have steel cage matches and they would bleed like they would make John Moxley smile. That's how crazy they would bleed in Canada. But Vince said no, they know they couldn't. So if again, you guys can go. I don't know if it's on Peacock or it's somewhere, maybe in the WWE Vault on the YouTube channel. Search the SummerSlam '94 Brett versus Owen title match in the steel cage, and it's a fight. It's a dog fight. But again, it goes back to the nucleus of that story of that bigger brother versus younger brother, and that's what it looked like. It looked like brothers, which they were,
Yeah.
fighting it out. And I think the Vault did a top brother versus brother countdown, and of course, Brett and Owen were the number one. Matt and Jeff are in there. Edge and Christian are in there, and of course, the
Kane and
Hearts when
Undertaker.
Kane and Undertaker are in there. So they put all the brother listings in there, or family fights, whatever it was, and of course, Brett and Owen were number one. But go back to that again. If you see that cage match and the sound of the cage, they did Brett doing the superplex on Owen again. Just a great technical match. But again,
SummerSlam
Owen on
'94, you said?
SummerSlam '94. They opened the United Center in Chicago, Illinois. So CM Punk can claim he sold it out. Well, Brett and Owen, they were unfortunately the semi-main event. We had to have that was the infamous Taker versus Taker match. Whatever. That was the main event that year. Leslie Nielsen, good to see him, but really, you wonder like, man, what if they put Brett and Owen in the main event? Oh well, whatever. I mean, you could watch the cage match and just shut it off there. It's Undertaker versus Undertaker. It's like 10 minutes or something like that.
Do you feel that Owen Hart was ahead of his time in wrestling? Because I say that, right, thinking just back then, early 90s, mid 90s, late 90s Attitude Era, it wasn't really about technical wrestling, right? It had to be the big bads. It had to be the entertainment.
It was the show.
Stone Colds and the Rocks. Now there's, the Gunthers and all the technical wrestlers. Angle came later. I feel like Owen and Bret Hart both probably would have fit in better in today's wrestling landscape than back then. Do you feel that way?
Absolutely. I mean, again, if anybody knows the Hart story, they're technical wizards, and more so Brett was more grounded technician, and Owen was a high flyer technician. So Owen, like you said, when he debuted Blue Blazer and still with the new foundation and with Coco Beware, he was still doing things that were pretty new in the WWF, that is. So he was doing the high flying moves, the kip ups, the flips when he has him on the ground and he does that flip to jump back up. Owen was doing that more than Brett was, because Brett he'll put you in a submission hold in 2 seconds. He was the submission specialist. Owen was the high flyer guy. So he was kind of doing, I dare say, lucha stuff. He followed Brett too. He went to Japan, he went to Europe and all that. So he was adapting those styles. And another tragic story of Chris Benoit. You think of the luchadors, the high flyers, the Eddie Guerreros, the Malenkos. Owen was doing that before them. So yes, Owen was ahead of his time in the late 80s. Because like you said, it was all about Hogan. It was all about Warrior, Andre the Giant, Boss Man, the big names, Macho Man, Ricky the Dragon, all that. And Brett and Owen were slowly climbing the ladder especially in the late 80s. Brett found his, let's call it his niche with Jim the Anvil, and they were doing crazy stuff as well. Again, coming from Calgary, that Calgary hitting style that they learned from their father and the whole family. So yes, Owen was ahead of his time, but like you said, it was at that time was the land of the giants. Even in Brett's book, Owen was feeling like not left out, but he felt like he couldn't compete because even Brett wasn't big. He wasn't, jacked up. He was only 6 foot. That's it. He wasn't 6'4" or whatever Hogan was, whatever Warrior were. They weren't jacked to the gills. You couldn't shred cheese on their abs. No, they were. I don't want to. The best word I
Brett
can say
was
is
pretty shredded back in his day. His traps.
He was.
Too. He looked good.
He was cut. I'd say he was cut. I wouldn't say he was Warrior cut, but he was at least he was in shape. He was in good shape. In the book, he even
him
said
and Stone Cold both looked great during their match. They were both in peak condition, not steroided up.
Absolutely, yeah. WrestleMania 13, they hit the gym and all that. But Owen just felt like he was never gonna achieve a high, quote unquote, high mountaintop in the company. And it was Brett telling him, like, look, same thing happened to me, just hang on there. And like I said earlier, that situation in 94 happened and Brett went to bat for Owen. And then someone please correct me, but if I remember in the book, I think Brett renegotiated his contract later on, and one of the steps in his contract was he would like Owen to be used more, and Vince agreed to it. That's when I think that whole turn changed, because Brett was his contract ended in 92-ish and he didn't know about it. So in case nobody knew, Brett almost jumped to WCW in the early 90s, but he was the IC champion and his contract rolled over. So I think when he renegotiated, one of the things was for Vince to come up for something for Owen. It took a year, but it finally happened. So again, people say there are the haters out there that say, well, Brett, I mean, he thought he is the GOAT, which I think he is, but he held Owen back. No, Brett did go to bat for Owen a lot. And now that I am remembering, yes, in his book, he mentioned when he renegotiated that contract in 92, and just the Vince was not desperate to keep him, but he wanted to keep him. He's like, what else do you want? What else do you want? And Brett put it in there like, I would like you to use Owen more. Not with him. He didn't say like with me. He just said, just can you do something for Owen? Because Owen was close to quitting and he didn't want to do it anymore. But Brett just told him like, look, same thing happened to me. I was trying to get this solo thing running, and he just kept proving night in, night out in his solo matches after he left the Hart Foundation that like he can be relied on. So he pushed Owen like just don't give up. But like I said, this opportunity happened with this family feud. Again, why Bruce was going to be the brother to go heel, like the world didn't know Bruce. The world knew Owen. It's like, oh, that's Brett's younger brother. And what better story than the baby brother hating on the older brother, getting all the attention? Again, at the end of WrestleMania 10, if those that remember, Owen beat Brett at WrestleMania. He beat him fair and square. He didn't pull the tights. He didn't hold on to the rope. No, he beat Brett fair and square. But what happened at the end of WrestleMania? Brett's the champion, and the ending, again, you want to talk about great endings to WrestleManias? That was awesome. They hoist Brett on Razor Ramon and Lex Luger's shoulders. Brett's celebrating with the crowd, and there comes Owen. Owen's like, wait, his face was saying like, I beat you, yet they're celebrating you. And you see it, and the camera got it perfectly. He mouths, what about me? It's like, yeah, what about Owen? And clearly that made him the number one contender. They made him do the King of the Ring thing just to push the storyline with Jim the Anvil going heel. And then, like I said, we got the masterpiece that was the SummerSlam match between him and Brett. So Owen had a pretty decent career going through. And again, like you said, he jumped around. Mostly he was a tag team specialist. I'll call him a tag team specialist with the Bulldog, with Yokozuna, all throughout 96, 97. And then finally the reunion of the Hart Foundation, where he won the Intercontinental title. And they were the badasses of the WWF until DX came around. And like I said, Montreal happened. So this is where, like I said, Owen was kind of floundering a little bit. He teamed up with Jeff Jarrett. He was in the Nation, which was very weird, but hey, whatever.
He
had a
so
job and he was
weird.
doing it. Wasn't it? It was just like, okay.
Hey, here's the Nation of Domination. They're touting, Black Power and Black Unity, and then let's just throw this white Canadian there. Like, you can't get any more white than a Canadian, and he did fine.
There you go.
He did fine. Owen Hart is so adaptable. Any gimmick they gave him, he was a company guy. It worked, but man, it felt so off.
It was interesting, yeah. But you can say that for those that don't know, well, we kind of know that Triple H and The Rock, they kind of did. Well, we all know Triple H. I don't know if he still is, but he was jealous of The Rock back in the day. They were both equals, climbing the ladder together, and well, The Rock won the title before Triple H did. And again, in his book, Brett said that we all know the power trip that Shawn Michaels and Triple H were having as DX, and they were giving The Rock a hard time when he was rocking Maivia. So The Rock knew Brett from his family, so Brett kind of took The Rock under his wing. And I'm sure when Brett left, Owen then picked up the quote unquote mantle of helping The Rock in his career. So The Rock really loved the Hart family. And in his book, I remember he has we were talking about books earlier. In his book, and The Rock says, and that's the title of his book, he has I believe a whole chapter, almost like 20 pages, nothing talking about Owen. And The Rock appreciated Owen when Shawn and Hunter were being pains in the rear to The Rock. It was Owen who now kept The Rock his head on his shoulder, like, look, don't mind them. He kind of reminded The Rock about the situation with Brett, and he's like, look, Brett went through the same thing with Shawn and Hunter. You'll get through this. So I'm sure The Rock appreciated the mentorship, let's call it, of Owen Hart. And it was nice for Owen to do that because he knew what Brett went through with those two guys. And now here's The Rock, who's just trying to just make money and be the best he could be. And then those two are nagging on him because they kept going to Vince saying like Rock wasn't ready. But well, 98 came around and he became the champion before Hunter did. So there is jealousy there. So so yeah, The Rock did appreciate Owen a lot. Like I said, in his book, he mentions it. Another guy who, like you said, imagine if we saw the matches. They only had a dark match. In Angle's book, he mentions Owen there a lot. He says he learned a lot from Owen. Imagine if we could have gotten to seeing, forget, everyone says, including yours truly, Brett versus Kurt Angle, what that would be a dream match. But imagine Owen versus Angle. We got
Yeah,
it in a dark
high
match, I
flying.
think. Imagine that, just the technical of both of them. And again, yes, Brett
Yep.
and Kurt is a match that I think we were robbed at. But imagine if we had Owen and Kurt going at it at their peaks. Oh my gosh, we would.
Because Kurt was 99, 98, 99 too.
99, yeah.
Yeah,
Late
yeah, yeah.
99, he was doing yeah, he came in late 99, fall 99.
So okay,
So
yeah. So
but
so
he was in
after
the
the
company.
incident.
He was in the company already before the incident, but he
Yeah.
wasn't pushed on TV yet. And
Yep.
I remember they had a match, but it was a dark match that people are trying to find. Speaking of trying to find videos, they're trying to find that match of Owen versus Angle, and just imagine how that would have been.
Crazier times, man. When the dark matches come up on social media from
Yeah.
just like, guys when they were year 2, year 3, you see these matches and you're like, holy crap, like that's awesome. And I don't know why they don't put that footage out there more. Like I feel like WWE could probably sell that and put these videos out of Cena and Owen and all these other people we never got to see on an actual, WWF WWE match. They could probably find a way to make money off of that.
Exactly. Yeah. And speaking of making money, we're going to bring in another person on stage to make more money for this video eventually. So I want everybody to give it up to our friend Dave Scheffler.
Hey,
Dave, how you doing?
hey guys, sorry I'm late.
No, it's all good. It's all good. Not to get off topic, but real fast. Oh no, you're going tomorrow. That's right. You're going tomorrow to see Michael. So again, I hope you enjoy it.
Yep.
So Dave, real fast.
Yep.
So we just kind of finished part 1 of the discussion. So just real fast, but tell us what you think. What do you remember before Over the Edge 99? We talked about his debut in the late 80s to about 98-ish. What do you remember most of Owen? Is there a special match that you remembered? Is there a skit? Or what do you remember of Owen before we get to 1999?
I love when he had the feud with Brett. Him and Brett were awesome together, and
We
it
all
was
did. Yes, we
like
did.
little brother.
Mm-hmm.
It was like little brother against big brother. I thought they played the story well. And it just was that. I think the best work was when he was doing that. Unfortunately, I know what happened to him at the end. I wish they wouldn't have put costumes on the guy. The guy was a great wrestler. He was I thought he should have been with the original Hart Foundation with Neidhart. He did get in there later, but I just remember how good a wrestler and performer he was. Him and his brother really mirrored each other.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Owen could have been as big as Brett, but I think it just was Brett. They built it more as a star than Owen.
True that. Yes. Yeah. And we were just mentioning how we missed out on Owen versus Angle. Owen with the beginning of the Attitude Eras where things were starting to get a little bit crazy, but they were still having great matches in the company. So, and then again, yes, Brett went to WCW, and everybody always wondering, like, well, why didn't Owen go to WCW when everybody else did? Well, Jim was let go in December, I believe, after he was humiliated by, speaking of DX. The British Bulldog, for those who didn't know, he had to actually buy his contract to get out of it. It was like the numbers is just a disgusting amount that he had to pay, but he wanted to get out of there, and Bulldog proudly paid it, and then he jumped to WCW. But Owen, when he went for his release, Vince said no. He's like, no, you're not going anywhere. In fact, he put more money on Owen's contract. And Owen, Brett said in his book, he eventually wanted to make enough money to retire from wrestling and actually become a firefighter in Calgary. And later on, his wife says that before Over the Edge, they just bought their dream home, finally, that they were building themselves. We'll get to that eventually. So Owen unfortunately got stuck, let's just say, in the company, couldn't go anywhere. And so that's when we got the Black Heart. Again, C-Rod said it best. Owen, Dave, I'll ask you your thoughts on Owen in the Nation of Domination of all the groups out there. The lone white Canadian guy.
That just did not fit. It just, it's kind of like they just it looked like they just had no stories for him. I'm not sure why. I think, it's too bad he couldn't go to WCW. I think he needed a change. Yeah, he would have been out of his brother's. He was out of his brother's shadow at that point, but they weren't doing anything with him. They could have. I don't know if it was the things that they did with him were punishment because Brett left, and they made sure he stayed. And I don't know, Vince. Vince kind of had that about him that he'd get people back, and
right.
so I don't know. I think unfortunately, Owen got caught in the crossfire of what happened with Brett.
Yeah, that is the thing.
I agree with Dave.
Yeah.
I think that they saw Brett as the bigger star, always, and unfortunately Owen got put in his shadow, like we talked about. He ended up being a mid-carder his whole career. He never got that big singles push. And after the whole Brett incident, I believe there's documentaries out there of like Vince and people refuting this fact, but I truly believe that they were just being petty. And Owen was a non-confrontational businessman. He was a what's best for the company before that was kind of a thing. And he just always wanted to make WWF happy. I think he was happy there. But I ultimately feel that he was pushed to the side and just cast to the bottom because of everything that happened with the screw job and his brother.
And I kind of think that's why and I think that's why now it's not just what happened and how he unfortunately passed away. I think that's why Diana Hart is involved with AEW, and the Owen Hart tournament is there and not where he was his whole career.
Yeah, we'll get to that. Don't worry, we'll get to the Owen tournament. And so we're climbing to the, I don't want to say the unfortunate part, but the reason that we're here today and commemorating this. So Owen, again, I think C-Rod, you said it best. He was a company man, and that's when the whole Blue Blazer came around. I don't remember which Vince it was, Russo or McMahon, that brought it back. And again, Owen just went with the flow, going off of Brett's book. Like he was bringing back the comic book hero thing. He was using the verbiage of saying your prayers and drinking your milk. Gee, I wonder where that came from. So you talk about unoriginal ideas, but that's what they started to do with the Blue Blazer. I honestly don't remember the original run of the Blue Blazer. He wasn't that super. He was just a guy in the blue tights with the mask. These promos were out of the blue, but he kept pushing the say your prayers and all that stuff. So he was a goofball. And as we remember in WCW with Sting coming from the rafters, they started doing that with the Blue Blazer as well. So it's like, all right, he had that elaborate entrance, but he was a goofy character when he landed on when he was coming down from the ceiling, he landed on the floor. And then the joke was he couldn't get out of the harness, and then the harness would raise and you'd see him yelling like, stop. And that was the goofy side of the Blue Blazer. So we're chugging along, and now let's unfortunately have to hit the sad point of it, but we reached over the edge. He was scheduled to take on the Godfather for the IC title, and I think he was supposed to win the IC title. I cannot confirm or deny that, but most of the stuff I've read was he was supposed to win the belt that night. And so, there is 17-year-old Oof. Shout out to my good friend Keith out there. I went to my best friend Keith. He's the reason. Blame him for all this. That is his fault. He's the one that got me into wrestling. I went to his house every month for the pay-per-view. And so there we were. His parents always ordered pizza. And just like C-Rod, we were watching the pay-per-view. And so, all right, here comes the next match. The Godfather, they put the graphic up, the Godfather versus Owen Hart. They go to the back of the arena. And again, the Blue Blazer doing that promo, the woo, say your prayers and drink your milk, be a good student, blah, blah, blah. And then we go to a video package of hyping the video of the match. All right, we get it. Godfather versus Owen Hart, or the Blue Blazer. Wink, wink. We weren't supposed to know it was him, but sometimes we did, we didn't. And then, like C-Rod mentioned earlier, David, that when we came back to the arena, it's like, why is the camera on the crowd? Shouldn't it be like in the ring? Or in the entranceway, and then we heard it. We heard Jim Ross just talking really weird, monotone, and like, folks, there's something going on. And me and Keith were just sitting there going, like, are they pulling our leg? What is going on? But then when Jerry Lawler, because Lawler, so to rewind real fast a little bit. So during that said video package, us at home were watching the video package, but those in the arena, that is when Owen unfortunately fell 75 feet from the catwalk of the arena straight down. And from the dark side of the ring and from Brett's book, he hit chest first on the corner turnbuckle. Jimmy Corderas was the referee. He says, again, if you see the Dark Side of the Ring episode of Owen Hart, he says he heard Owen yelling, and at the perfect time, he turned around and walked away from the corner, and he felt Owen brush next to him. So we could have had 2 potential deaths at that night. And again, from the Dark Side of the Ring episode to even just show you how crazier this would be, and I don't know if you guys saw it, they were supposed to have a midget
Oh, sorry. No, I was going to
say
say that on the documentary, as the referee, he was like, Owen's, last thought was to save my life, not to worry about him dying. It was to scream and shout. So I moved out of the way, which, I mean, I have goosebumps just kind of thinking about it. Like, yeah, you're falling to your death. And his last notion was, let me save somebody else.
Yeah, and again, to add it more craziness, what we learned in the documentary there, he was supposed to have a midget wrestler on his back, but at the last second they X-nayed that, and thank God for that. I mean, we did still lose Owen, but imagine now it's Owen, a midget wrestler heading down, and let's say Owen didn't scream and Jimmy didn't hear it, and just thinking about it, like I said, goosebumps. So Owen hit his chest on the turnbuckle, and he was still alive in the ring. But Jerry Lawler, like I said, he came back, and when I saw Lawler's face, I'm like, something happened. What in the world happened? And so he gets carted off, and he sent to ambulance, and then the show continued. So Dave, real fast, what do you remember from Over the Edge '99? Do you remember watching it? Do you remember what was your reactions when, like I said, you saw Jim Ross, you saw Jerry Lawler, the camera still panning around the crowd? What was going through your mind at that moment?
Well, I didn't get the pay-per-views at that time, but I did see things afterwards, and I saw some things in that. My first reaction was, oh my God, what all those, I mean, being in that arena, I don't know what I would have thought I would have, especially having a child there and watching that. It's like, and then my memory as Jim Ross, it seemed like he sounded like he was monitoring, but it looked like he was going to cry. And Lawler was definitely heading towards tears. And it's like, my first thought is, and this, I know I'm not thinking like Vince and like for the money of the crowd.
Right.
How could you continue this? How could
exactly?
How? I know the show must go on and all that crap that he talked about. And it's like, I almost was tossed off of wrestling for a while after seeing what happened. And it's like, how could this guy be that money hungry and that unemotional? I can't see. I don't care who's in the crowd. How many people in that crowd really would have wanted to go on to watch the rest of that show? I mean, really, they stayed, but I mean, just to be a fly on the wall in that arena afterwards and see what these people were thinking. And you're right, you guys are both right about chills. The chills of seeing the story about what happened with the referee, and it is a selfless act. And there's so many selfless acts from some of these wrestlers. You never know. You see good and bad in the ring, but you have no idea that so many of them are probably some of the most caring people in the world. I mean, I've seen that firsthand now. And it's like to think about somebody else before knowing that this is it. And he had to know once he fell, there was no way this guy was going to live. And it's a sad thing. It's just so sad.
Mm.
I I
Yeah, it
think
truly was. Yeah. Yeah, Chris.
I think the craziest thing is if you guys have seen the Vince McMahon documentary where he talks about this, and he said, yeah, it was a business decision. And one of the lines I'll never forget, he said that even if it was my own son, I would have made the same decision
Hmm.
to continue the show.
Yep.
I
Oh,
like, I just there's zero chance that that happens in today's world, obviously. But like Dave said, the people that were there, for Vince to say, I don't think anybody saw it because the house lights are off or whatever, like,
Mhm.
you know damn well people watch this dude fall. Now, if they know is this fake or not, then they're sitting in the ring for how many minutes, you know, watching this dude bleed out. There's still blood on the mat, even though they say, oh, that was from a different match. There's still blood on the mat from where he
Some of it
died.
was Owens. Yeah. Yeah.
mhm.
Some of it was Owens.
And
Yeah.
yeah, you know, they tried to say, oh, it was a different match. It was it was his blood. These people
Mhm.
wrestled where this man died. And for Vince to like even come back out on another documentary and still have that same notion of I would have moved the show no matter what is wild to me. And it's
Hmm.
also wild to me that that nobody, I don't know if you know, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't believe that too many people have come out that maybe were in attendance and talked about that. Like, I haven't really heard anybody say, oh yeah, I was there and this is what I remember. But I feel like if more people were there live, they would have maybe been talking about it. But I'm not sure. Maybe WWE somehow got that out of there too.
He'll
Probably.
never
Yeah.
back down. Vince will never back down from from that decision because he'll never go
Yeah.
back. And you know, it would have been nice if he would came out afterwards or a documentary and said, "Yeah, I made a mistake."
Hmm.
And I'm sure
No, never.
every time he said that too, Owen's wife probably got more cringe every time and I'm sure she heard it. I'm sure she heard what
I'm
he
sure.
was
Yeah.
saying. Uh, it's
Yeah.
like yeah, I mean, I'm surprised she didn't come out there and try to kill him at that point too.
Hmm.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
because
Yeah. C-Rod
it's
mentioned it
just,
earlier. This is the late 90s. So there was really no social media. I mean, there was AOL, there was chat rooms, there were web
hmm
pages. So maybe again, I remember being part of some AOL chat rooms. Google it, kids. I remember being part of those things, and we did discuss the pay-per-view, but I don't ever recall reading someone's like eyewitness account. Now I'd say like into the new millennium, people when they were starting to mess with like with technology and creating scenarios, people would then be like, oh, and then when the introduction of Photoshop came around, that's when people started being started for my Swahili, but they were being dicks about the Owen incident, where like, look, here's a photo of me at the arena, and it was 100% fake, is what I'm saying. So yeah, so to your point, C-Rod, maybe there were group discussions, like whatever the early pages were of that time. Maybe people did give their eyewitness accounts, but I personally don't ever remember reading them.
Yeah.
I just remember, again, Keith lived just 3 blocks from my house, so I left. And by the time I got home, well, of course, I'm Hispanic. I came home and my dad was watching the Spanish news in the living room, and there was the story right there. I went to my room. My mom was in her room, and I could hear the television in her room. And then they were both questioning me about it. They're like, "What's this about a wrestler?" And I'm like, "I don't know. I was just as confused as they were." So we
Mm.
move on to the next night, which is Monday Night Raw, and they suspended the show, and they made it a Owen Hart tribute. And I'll never forget. Say what you want about his career and what he did in TNA or what he's done generally, but I lost it when I saw Jarrett, when the wrestlers were giving their testimonies about Owen, when Jarrett was talking, and even when I'm cool with him now, but when I saw Triple H and China losing their minds, especially Triple H, I was like, okay, this is real. I mean, yes, we knew this was real, but
Yeah.
when they announced that he had passed away, seeing all these wrestlers giving their testimony, but the three that hit me the most were Jarrett with Deborah, but more Jarrett, and Triple H and China, where they were just losing it there. Say what you want about them going out there. wrestling. According to reports, it was up to them to do it. It was cute when Jarrett went. I forgot who he faced, but he won via the sharpshooter, so that was cute. That was a cool little.
Didn't Jarrett
nod.
have to go on? Wasn't he like the next match? Weren't they like really good friends? And I think I
they
heard
were
something
tag
like,
partners. Yeah,
okay,
they were. He was the very next match, and so
yeah,
when they
like
did
saw
going
like
back,
walked past him getting wheeled out like dead,
Yep.
and then had to go right out
then
and wrestle.
before once they passed Owen past him, and they quote unquote went back on the show. Jarrett did a promo in the back, and you heard it in his voice. He was just like, "Owen, we're praying for you." He was walking the line of like being Jeff Jarrett, plugging his match, but then he went back to Owen, and he was a wreck, and everybody else were a wreck during that show. But that Raw that night, it's titled Raw is Owen. He was a complete mess. Everybody was a complete mess, and at the end, we had the hottest babyface in the world. We had Stone Cold come out. Before that, The Rock came out, said he said he basically loved Owen. That was cool. And then at the end, Owen got beer can in the air by Stone Cold, and the graphic that we started with was there. And so it was a good job done. But again, putting my favoritism and my markism for the Hart family aside, I think I agree with all you guys where they should have stopped the pay-per-view, and maybe they should have canceled Raw like they did with which came way later, the Benoit tragedy. They should have just canceled the show, and like Brett said, maybe done a best of Owen tribute where it's just his matches, and then maybe still have the wrestlers give their testimony. I don't know. What do you guys think? I'll go to C-Rod first. So what do you think, C-Rod? Should they have kept the formula that they did, the program like they did, or should they have done a Owen tribute, or should they canceled Raw? What do you say?
No, I'm okay with them ending, the show where he passed, which they should have done. But I think having Raw, unfortunately, I don't mean this in a bad way, but business does have to go on.
No, yeah.
People had bought all of the tickets for that. It was during the Attitude Era. I'm sure they were completely sold out. No, I don't think you cancel Raw. Maybe, like you said, put more video packages, but they did the whole tribute to him. The whole show was about him. Wrestlers, a lot of times when athletes have deaths in their life, baseball players, football players, basketball players, whatever it is, they want to go out and compete for that person that they lost. And I guarantee you, every single wrestler that night was doing it for Owen. Like they said, I just think it's a little insane to make them keep wrestling in that moment, in that night,
in the
give
show,
them some time to, catch themselves. And I understand all of those people in the house paid to see that pay-per-view. I'm sure if you tell them, hey, somebody passed away, here's your money back, they'll be completely fine. But long story short, no, I don't think they should have canceled Raw or anything moving forward. I think it's more just in the moment where they should have been more humane.
Awesome. Okay. All right, Dave, same question. What do you feel? The Raw after the pay-per-view, do what they did, change it up, or cancel it?
I totally agree with Chris, because by then it had been 2 days. Definitely cancel the show at that moment.
It was the next night. It was the next
night.
Oh,
that's right. That's right. That's right. It was Sunday. The pay-per-views were Sunday back then.
Yep.
Yeah. It's still not in the moment. Not in the moment. They should have canceled. The next day I think it's fine as long as they made that show like they did about him. It had to be only about him, because after what happened, and them going on, they needed to do something at least to soothe it over. And like Chris said, those tickets were well sold in advance, and they had everything set up. You can't really cancel Raw at that point, but they did it. At least they made it about him, and that was the main part there. And Jeff Jarrett, you mentioned him. He still cries every year. I mean, when he made the run in Owen last year, the Owen Hart, where it looked like he wanted to win it for Owen, but obviously that didn't happen. But you could still see his eyes well every time Owen's mentioned.
Yep.
I felt more after you look at Jeff Jarrett over the years, and a lot of people have a lot of bad things to say about him, and a lot of things about him. The guy's a human, and you could see the love he had for Owen every time he's mentioned. And the one thing I gotta say about AEW, that was a story with him, because when they were talking about this and about the Owen Hart tournament last year, that wasn't a script. That was all from the heart. He had everything he said was right off the top of his head because it was all about Owen still.
Hmm. And yeah, that's a beautiful segue. Thank you, David, and thanks, Chris, on that, on your thoughts. And that's a great segue to. We're gonna flash forward a little bit to today's world, where, like, we know, and like you said, Dave, AEW has the annual Owen Hart tournament, started a couple years ago. So we're bringing it up because not only has it's going to start on Sunday, we have a couple matches on the Double or Nothing card, but there are some schmucks on the internet who are throwing. And again, say what you want about her, but she is his widow. She is the mother of his children. While people are throwing Martha under the bus because how dare she be in business with AEW and not WWE? Because Owen never wrestled in AEW. Well, duh, it started in 2019, so there's that. 20 years after his death, so there's that. But again, and this is where I'd probably see Rod's jaw is going to hit the ground, where I don't agree with Brett. I am 100% on Martha's side, where I am with the family of Owen, saying do not put him in the Hall of Fame, because I stand with Martha, where she does not want WWE. Again, it's 27 years since his passing. She still does not want the company she holds responsible for to earn a penny off of his name. Now, everyone's like, well, what about AEW? Aren't they earning a penny on their name? No, Tony Khan is donating whatever I guess from his own pocket or sales from the Met. I don't know. He's donating it to the Owen Hart Foundation in Canada. So, and plus, AEW is not responsible. It wasn't AEW Presents Over the Edge. It was WWF Presents Over the Edge. So Martha going in business with AEW again as a heart mark, I see nothing wrong with it. Now, will we ever see Martha be in business with WWE? That is a tough question to answer, because I think even Brett said it, or I think it was Martha that said it. If they include ever one year, they put Owen in the Hall of Fame. Again, in Martha's eyes, which I don't blame her, WWE is going to benefit from it. Now, if I was Martha and WWE came up to me and said, like, all right, look, we would like to put Owen in the Hall of Fame. We're going to have, obviously, the ceremony, sell tickets for it, and we're going to give 100% of the proceeds to the Owen Hart Foundation. I'm not going to say yes. I'm going to be like, let's talk. But again, that's why Martha doesn't want Owen in the Hall of Fame, because,
TKO
well,
would
two reasons.
never.
And now we're talking 2026.
Yep.
So forget years ago, even the mid 2000s. Brett went in, Jim is in, Stu Hart is in, the British Bulldog's in, Brian Pillman's in. Somebody is missing, but I'm sorry to all the haters out there, to all the Owen Hart fans who are screaming to put him in the Hall of Fame. He's never gonna go in. I'm sorry. And again, as a Hart mark, I'm bummed, but I am on Martha's side. So the whole thing with AEW is they're in business together. They made the action figure, but 100% of the proceeds are going to the Owen Hart Foundation. And like C-Rod, you said, in this TKO era, you think they're gonna give one penny or all of it away? I highly
Look,
like the
look what
great
they did.
Aaron Rick
Look
would
what they
say.
just did with Sid Vicious. You know, his son and his family. You know, they didn't really bank on it because his son said they didn't really even have merch selling for him.
Right.
But he was like so underwhelmed with how they presented Sid at the Hall of Fame. I'm not saying WWE would do this, but if they were to move forward with some sort of Owen Hart WWE Hall of Fame, who knows if people are even happy how they present him? Because like you said, they put his merch out there. That's probably going to sell a little bit more than Sid. They're going to make money. Or maybe they don't put any merch out there and people are like, well, they're not advertising Owen and now they're putting him in there.
Right.
I think it's a lose-lose for everybody involved. I don't ever see Owen Hart going into a WWE Hall of Fame. Unless maybe until after she passes and one of the kids needs money or something. I don't know.
Probably, but seeing going back to, again, if no one's have checked it out, check out Dark Side of the Ring, the Owen Hart episode. Seeing Oj and Athena, that's his Owen's son and daughter. Wow, literally, if they ever made an Owen Hart movie,
Copy
his
paste.
son Oj, copy paste exactly. Oj could play Owen, and it's if you were in a lineup and you'd be like, all right, pick out the two kids who are Owen Harts, it's like those two right there. They look like his dad. They're carrying his. It's kind of like David Benoit, where he looks just like his father. These two, they're Owen Hart's kids. They have their look. And again, when I saw the debut of that episode, I was like, "Holy cow! Look at Oj and Athena." The last time I remember seeing them was at Calgary Stampede in '97. At the end of the match, when the Hart Foundation won, the whole entire Hart Foundation clan in 1997 invaded the ring. First with Stu, then Helen, then here come the grandkids, and you see Martha holding. She's carrying Oj, and Athena is with Oj is with Owen, and Athena is with her mom. And again, this is 1997, so how many 77 29 years, almost 30 years ago. So 29 years ago, so it was whatever their age is now minus 29. That's how old they were then. And you see a young Natty there too as well. Anyway, so that was the last time we saw Oj and Athena. And then when the Dark Side of the Ring episode, when I found out that they interviewed not only Martha but the kids too, and you see Oj and Athena, it's like, wow, they are Owen's kids. And that one thing I did like about, it's hard to say like about that episode because it's just it hits you in the feels, that Dark Side of the Ring episode. So shout out to those producers. They did a great job on that episode. What I did like was seeing they got their hands on home videos. You see Owen holding the camera, talking to a mirror. You see him recording. You see them on family trips. One cute scene, Oj is holding Owen's tag title. And it's like, I think the greatest tag title design in the world were those late 80s, early 90s tag titles. He's holding it. And that was just awesome to see. But again, done not with WWE's permission. It was all Martha going to the producers. And say what you will about her and Brett, their relationship it's sad. So long story short, Brett and Martha have completely distanced themselves. It's sad. It's Brett's niece and nephew. And again, we know the Hart clan, like I said, 8 boys, 4 girls, so many kids, grandkids, and great grandkids. Even Natalia has lost contact with them as well. It's sad to see a family get ripped apart, but this is where I guess you play devil's advocate, where you're like, I understand, sad, but I understand. Martha has completely disconnected herself from the Hart clan, and it stinks because family is family, blood is blood. Like I said, Natalia with Davey Boy Smith's son, they're cousins. They're first cousins. Brett and Owen were brothers. They are first cousins with Oj and Athena. And to see them not have contact, Brett not have contact with his sister-in-law, with his niece and nephew. And again, Martha has completely gone away with it. And again, we can understand why she did. And one day we hope sometime, hopefully wounds can heal. There could be a reconciliation. Will it happen? We don't know. Brett's book was kind of written back in the day where he felt bad for Martha, but now, like I said, they're at a war of words right now. But Martha seems to be happy with Tony Khan and AEW, and like I said, every year the Owen Hart tournament is happening. It starts this Sunday. We'll get a new quote unquote new champions for that, and it's great that this partnership started. Somebody mentioned it. I don't know where I read it, but like, how cool would it be? Not really cool, but how cool would it be if Natalia either decides to leave WWE or gets a 50% discount cut of her salary? She leaves WWE and then she heads to AEW. You're not going to tell me that TK is not going to want her to win the Owen Hart Cup? What? That would be freaking sick to see her. But again, Martha does show up for the finals, so I don't know how that would be if TK goes to Martha like, look, we signed Natalia to a contract and we kind of want her to win. Would Martha be okay with it? I'm sure Brett would show up, be like, yeah, give it to Natty. But who knows? But it's cool that Owen's memory is still alive after all these years. Again, 27 years since that fateful night in Kansas City, Missouri. And again, we were all, yes, David, we were young. We were young in 99. C-Rod was barely a baby.
Just a baby.
I'm happy, just a baby. But I'm happy to see, like, when they first announced that first Owen Hart tournament, I was happy to see that hopefully people don't forget who he is. That's what Brett's fear was, why he wants Owen so bad in the Hall of Fame, because obviously when you're put in the Hall of Fame, even the way Sid was put in, when you're put in, they talk about you, they show you, they start uploading all your photos, your videos. Now with social media, they blast it over there. So that's what Brett is hoping for, that if Owen ever goes into the Hall of Fame, the WWE will start showing his videos, because they are not allowed to, allegedly. So they would show his videos, his photos, recaps of his match. Again, we spoke about his matches. You can go to the vault or just Google Owen matches. I'm sure someone uploaded them, but at least there'll be a nice collection about it. And that's what Brett wants. He doesn't want people to forget Owen, but people were never going to forget Owen, especially unfortunately, the way he passed. But his memories last forever. His matches were all great. And if it means we got to search for it on YouTube, Daily Motion, or we become pirates or whatever, his stuff is out there, and we all have wonderful memories of Owen. It's just sad of the way he left us. Shouldn't have happened. Again, I highly recommend everybody check out that Dark Side of the Ring episode. I believe Martha in everything that she said. Why would I doubt her? Just if you see the look in her eyes when it's like she talks about how they met, they got married, the kids, blah, blah. But when we get into Kansas City, if you just see her eyes and we get through the trial and everything the hell that she went through, just looking at her eyes, this woman is telling the truth. First of all, what does she have to gain to lie? Number one. You see the kids trying to talk about their dad. Like, always remembers his dad. Athena, not that much. He was crazy young back in '99. So his memory is going to live forever. We wrestling fans need to think of the greater good of Owen Hart. Yes, the Over the Edge pay-per-view is out there, and it is nice that the WWE does start with a graphic warning people and the memory of Owen Hart before that pay-per-view starts. That's how it was on the network and on Peacock. I don't know how I'm sure they're going to keep it like that. But that's the cool part. Like Dave said the other night, when we talk about wrestling communities, it's cool. We have all this stuff that in common to talk about, to share memories, where we were when this happened, what were we feeling, and we all have different angles. Like, again, I was in my best friend Keith's house. You guys were watching it your way, or you found out about it your way. But it's cool. We have this awesome little wrestling community to gab about things, to reminisce, talk about how awful Iron Man 3 is, but that's the good part about life. We can agree to disagree. I'm sorry, C-Rod. I'm going to hang this over you forever. So you're awesome. But I thank you guys for tuning in. Dave, before we head out, where can the awesome people out there find you?
Well, you can see me on Facebook answering it, looking at every no DQ thing about our wrestling community. And you can see me on No DQ with Uthman, and see me on Major Push with both you and C-Rod. And thank you for having me. Always want to get together with my boys here, and now that I've met C-Rod in person, it was a cool thing. We had a cool time, and I look forward to a lot more good times. And as we talked about the other night, looking forward to meeting you one day, Uthman, in person, and having us all hang out together.
That would be cool. That would be awesome to have one awesome no DQ party. Major, just imagine that stream, no DQ, Major Push, and Gabbin with Oof. Wow, we'll break the internet, as the kids say today. C-Rod, again, thank you so much for finally coming on to Gabbin with Oof and the Oof Entertainment Studios. Where can we find you and your latest episode that you like to talk about a lot?
Oh man, it was great to be here. I feel, like I said, honored to be here. I know that I don't have a lot of knowledge about Owen Hart, but just gabbing and talking about it, whether it's wrestling or like we talked about superheroes, or like we'll talk about, I don't know if this is a spoiler, but the NWO coming up. I can't wait for that. Again, this was just such a crazy moment. I think that the Monday Night Wars pushed everybody to an extreme back then. I think people,
even the fans, yeah, agreed.
Everybody was chasing shock value, and it was just such a different time. And it's really unfortunate that happened when it did, because there were so many cover-ups, so many videos that aren't out there. And what's sad, like I mentioned at the top of this, is younger fans, unfortunately, will remember this tragedy more than how good of a wrestler he was. But I don't think the tragedy is just that he died. I think it's one of the most respected wrestlers, one of the best wrestlers. He died doing a gimmick that was beneath him, that he probably should never been doing, and the show kept going on. And it's a very sad incident. It's that mark right there next to the Benoit incident that will live infamously with WWE. I don't think anybody will ever forget Owen Hart because of how infamous this will be. But I digress. And again, the You Good podcast. We come out every Thursday on YouTube, at Spotify, at Crods Pod. Goofman and Papa Gino were just on there for episode 48, where we usually talk about mental health, but we put that to the side to talk about MCU rankings with Spider-Man and Doomsday coming up. And it was a really fun time. I really enjoy gabbing. It was great to meet Dave. It's great to be a part of your network. I hope one day you take Liv Morgan from New Jersey and come down and visit. But I look forward to more gabbing with you, buddy, and I appreciate you having me on.
Oh, no problem. She's from Elmwood Park, just a couple minutes from Little Falls here. I don't know. I'll tell you guys, be like, hey, I'm heading to Florida, and I'm not coming alone, and we'll never know. But yeah, for both of you guys, thanks again so much for being on. And again, yes, like C-Rod said it best. Unfortunately, the more thoughts of Owen is of that tragic day, but with social media, with the new WWE Vault, which I don't know if you guys have checked it out. I think it's a great channel. They're uploading so much stuff in there. Hopefully Peacock or Netflix will get on the ball and upload, make it look like how the old WWF network used to be. And we see the full matches on there. And to go back to see the Owen matches again, that could be another video of billions of matches. But yeah, just to hype you guys up even more. Next week begins a little mini series here on Oof Entertainment with Gabbin with Oof, where next week we will jump into part 1 of the 30th. Yes, cannot believe it. It'll be 30 years since the arrival of the NWO. I'm going to split it up into a little
Monday night.
We'll be together on Monday night, and the anniversary will be next Wednesday. So part 1, we will talk about when Scott Hall walked down the stairs and declared war on WCW, coming from somewhere, wink, wink. Part 2, that's what he said. So part 2 is on the week before, he said that he had a big surprise for Sting. We'll discuss who that big truck size surprise is, and then it'll conclude with part 3. It's not till July, but in July of 1996, the big match, WCW Macho Man Lex Luger and Sting versus the Outsiders of Scott Hall and Kevin Nash, and a third mystery man who was in the building. And we saw him come down, but we thought he was there to save WCW, but no, we see him turn to the dark side, literally the black and white side, and the birth is actually there of the NWO, commemorating 30 years since that legendary group debuted. And again, C-Rod said it best, in the Attitude Era, both companies were trying to up one each other
for life,
and exactly for life. And this was I guess Bishop's answer to beating. How do you beat the WWF? Well, you beat them literally at their own game with their own people. We're going to gab all about that starting next week. So again, gentlemen, thank you so much for coming on. For everybody here, please like and subscribe to the channel. I will link the link for C-Rod's channel in the description of the video. I want everybody all to take care. God bless. And of course, now and forever, may the name of Owen Hart live forever, but long live the King of Hearts, Owen Hart. To his family, to everybody, we miss you, Owen. 27 years. I can't believe it's been 27 years. But like C-Rod said, like Dave said, we're never going to forget Owen Hart, because when you do lose somebody, but you talk about them, they're great memories. They will live forever. And yes, this is a wrestling show. This is a wrestling gimmick. It's a profession, but some people hit you, no pun intended, in the heart. And Owen was one of the best. And so may he rest in peace, and long live the King of Hearts, Owen Hart.